if you were put in contact with someone whose brother or sister had osteosarcoma, there's probably so much that you could tell them that helps them on their journey and maybe makes their journey just a little easier. Not an easy journey. Okay, it's not something that I would wish on anyone, right? And I think all the time about what would Lucy be doing? What would Lucy think of this, or she's not here to share the birth of my daughters, or or whatever. I can tell you the year that I turned 30, I was terrified the whole year.
Really?
I'm like, I became the oldest child.
Yeah,
that whole change of, and my parents never said, you're the oldest child, you have to do this, but there are, and I talk about it all the time. I talk about it in my new book. I'm not trying to pimp my new book too much here, but I talk about that the change in family structure and the expectations that someone who is the oldest, what the expectation is.
Yeah, I actually have never thought of that before. That's super interesting. And that makes me really think about how that must be for Grace. So that's super interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, your sibling position didn't change.
Right.
It didn't really change because she's always been the youngest.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
Not to take anything away from Grace, but I went from being the middle child to now I'm technically the oldest child. I still, 23 years later, think of myself as a middle child.
Yeah.
Even though Lucy obviously hasn't been around for almost a quarter century. And my parents never said, now it's up to you, but I knew that there were a whole lot of firsts that I was going to have to do that Lucy never did. And Lucy had quite a few stupid maneuvers that I sat back, looked at and go, all right, not going to do it that way.
Yeah.
And, so there's that. There's the, how is the relationship change between the siblings, right?
Right.
If, in the movie, it appeared that Zach was very close to Grace. How does that, how do you think your relationship with Grace, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your brother's name, but Sam, how do you think that relationship has changed?
I think so, because there were like two pairs, it was always Sam and I and Grace.
Right.
I think obviously there was a hole left, but I'm kind of grateful for the experience in a way, because I'm a lot closer to Grace now.
Sure.
Just as sisters, and actually the three of us are pretty close. So I mean, that whole gap that was there was resolved pretty quickly, and it's because we not only experienced Zach's death together, but also everything that happened afterward. We had very similar feelings about like things like the documentary and the movie and all of that stuff that were sometimes different than my parents. And I think sharing that experience together has made us a lot closer than I probably would have been with Grace had Zach been alive. So
sure, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt, because just pure age-wise, what you're going through is not, is so far removed from what Grace was going through at 14. Right?
Yeah, so true. Yep. Yeah. Because she was like just entering teenagehood, and I was trying to figure out the next chapter of my life in college. I was 23. I think he was diagnosed when I was 19. And it was a really strange thing, because Zach was facing essentially a death sentence that was like, your life's going to end when you're a teenager. And I was facing like, but yours isn't. So you have all these things you need to do to move on with your life, but you also want to stay put with your brother. And there's that tension. And then, you know, I think Grace was also at a really pivotal chapter of like transition too.
Absolutely.
But obviously, yeah, they're both very different. So I think now that she's older too, we're able to process things more similarly than we may have been, you know, when she was 14.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, you know, we all change and we all, you know,
Yeah.
as we get older and we get through adolescence, our perspective changes. We, you know, I find that as uh, adults, my relationship with Cynthia, my younger sister, is it was always really good. She was like the little brother I never had, and
Yeah.
growing up, we played games and stuff together. But certainly, it's evolved and matured and stuff somewhat. She still likes to scare the bejesus out of me, but and fortunately, she's exceptionally good and crafty at it. So one of
Oh man.
I mean, I'm telling you, Allie, like one of the things she did one time, my parents had a house in Boston, and in order to use the shower, I had to go through her bedroom. It was like early in the morning. And so I go in, I'm trying to be all quiet, and I look. And then when I'm coming out of the bathroom, I'm trying to open the door. It's an old house, and the door sticks with
Yeah.
the humidity. And I get it open, and I look over, and it looks like she's still in bed. So I'm quietly trying to get out of her room, and there's right next to the doorway is a closet, and she pops out of the closet. Scared me so bad, Allie. Oh my,
That's
I fell on the floor. I was like, oh my God.
It
And,
sounds so awesome.
and what she did is she had taken her pillow and she put it in the pillow so it looked like she was in bed.
That is really crafty.
I'm telling you, she's crafty.
So motivated. I don't know if I'd be that motivated.
Look, she's your quintessential younger sister. I'm sure that Grace does, you know, Grace just came out knowing how to bother the bejesus out of you.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true.
And she probably still can, you know.
Every once in a while.
So yeah, I mean, and you know, I mean, it is interesting, and certainly what you've gone through and sort of the publicness of Zach's death, you know, I have to imagine at times makes it kind of hard because it puts all of your whole family kind of on display.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And I think, you know, it's kind of weird. I think about it because we kind of had the option to be on display or not. And what's interesting is all of like my siblings and I, we kind of decided just to kind of take the background. It was our decision partially, but also just like being siblings in general kind of put us in the background. But yeah, I don't know. That's the thing to think about is how being on display kind of changes things.
Look, I mean, I put myself on display because I'm out there talking about Lucy every day, and you know, one of the things I want to tell you is that every day you have a choice whether you want to talk about Zach or not.
Yeah.
And I told my friends at the beginning, just because I don't want to talk about it today doesn't mean I don't ever want to talk about it. It just means today is not a good day and I'm choosing not to do it. And there's so much power in choice, Allie, right?
Yeah.
I am defining my loss. It is not defining me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that definition can change every day, but it's still in your control. Yeah.
Right. And if you go, I'm choosing today is not a good day, so I'm going to choose to climb into bed and pull the covers up over my head. Okay, you've made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, exactly.
or you know,
Say that to your friends because I've experienced people really close to me, like with all the movie stuff going on. Because I'll be honest, during the whole documentary process was really hard for me. I was really mad all the time. And I felt like anytime there was a camera in my house, it was taking away from the time I was getting with my brother that I knew was going to be up pretty soon. And I had decided to stay home from a study abroad trip because I wanted that time with him.
Mhm.
And pissed off at my mom because she was doing all these exciting things with Zach. And I was like, but that's supposed to be my time. I can't remember where I was going with this because I'm just like thinking about that whole process, but it was hard.
It's kind of about the choice, you know?
Yeah.
And I can hear from you, it sounds like you're like, I had made a choice to spend time with Zach and I didn't, and there were other people who were interfering with this time that I had.
Yeah, vying for that time that was very limited and very obviously limited, you
Right.
know? So yeah, thank you for bringing that back around for me. I get into that chapter and I just think about how it was and it was really intense and then I forget everything else.
And I get that, but you know, it is about, you know, I mean, I try and encourage people, like, define your loss, because it's a loss.
Yeah.
And
Well, I remember what you were saying about how you were telling your friends, like some days you don't want to talk about it and some days you do. And it doesn't mean I don't want to talk, like if I don't want to talk about it one day, it doesn't mean I don't want to talk about it another.
we in America have, like, we're horrible with death. We literally are like ostriches. Oh my God, just don't even talk about it, right?
I actually ended up acknowledging it way after the fact. And someone was like, I'm just not good with death. And I think part of like why you is to help people learn how to talk about it. It's okay. It's healthy. It's reality. A big old reality. So
As indestructible as you and I are, we are both going to die at some point.
Exactly. And I always talk about and think about this, like I'm really, really grateful that if my brother was to die at all, that it was when I was as young as I was, because it prioritized a lot of things for me really early on.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do that now. Like, I don't have to struggle through that. It like, it hurt really bad in the moment, but I have so much more meaning in my life now because of that I wouldn't have had. I can pretty much 100% say without that experience. And I think people get a little freaked out when I bring that up, you know, because I don't want it to sound like like I'm super grateful that he's dead, because you know, but I can glean the goodness from it,
Right.
you know.
And it's not that you're glad that he's dead, but what you're looking at, Alli, and I think the same way I am, which is, this isn't defining who I am as a person. This thing happened to me. I'm acknowledging it, but I'm also I am looking for the lessons, the knowledge that I've gained from it, and I'm moving on. I can say Zach's name. I can acknowledge him. I can talk about him. I can talk about the good. I can talk about the bad. I can talk about the good and the bad of Lucy. But frankly, when I talk about Lucy, I keep her alive in my heart and in my life and in the universe. And you and your family are doing the same thing for Zach. And how awesome is that, to say, yeah, Zach or Lucy died, but they are still alive in our life and we want to share that with other people. That's awesome.
Yeah. And like, what a testament to like love too, I think.
Absolutely.
Because I think this is in the movie Interstellar, but it's like the one thing that still exists, even if the other person is gone completely, and how mind-boggling and like nuts that is. Zach made me a very existential person. And like,
would he make fun of you for being so existential?
yeah, he made me so existential, and I'm that's such a beautiful thing to have now, you know, and to be able to share with other people is like, it's kind of weird that humans can still love people even when they're dead, and like, what does that mean, and how does that define who we are, and whatnot. And it's just, I don't know, it's something that I feel really privileged to be able to have experience and also share with others.
Absolutely. I think you're doing great, Alli.
Thanks.
I think you're doing great. Well, look, believe it or not, you and I have been talking for an hour.
I could talk to you for another hour.
No, I know. Well, hey, you never know. Maybe there's the part 2 with Alexander talking about that.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, yeah.
And my name is Xander Sprague. Epic begins with one step forward. And remember, epic choices lead to epic lives. All right, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.